Chapter 1081. Is this the way my father has paved for me? David fell into deep thought. Just when David fell into deep thought, suddenly there was a commotion at the door of the venue, which woke David up. I saw Guo Wei brought more than a dozen people from the Martial Arts Alliance, each of whom was above the 8th rank martial sect. Watching this scene, David frowned slightly. It seems that the foundation of this martial arts alliance is not generally deep, and it has so many martial arts masters. David followed Ding Dao and walked over. When Zhu Zishan saw that David had not left, he raised his mouth and said, "David, are you reluctant to leave?" David's face was cold, but he didn't speak. "Do you still want a taste of being suppressed? If you want, the four of us don't mind letting you taste." Seeing that David did not speak, one of the law enforcement elders said coldly. But just after the law enforcement elder finished speaking, he saw Ding Dabu's figure flashed and disappeared instantly, and then appeared in front of the law enforcement elder. Snapped! Ding Dabu slapped it with a palm, and the law enforcement elder's head cracked instantly. This sudden change directly splattered the blood of Zhu Zishan. This time, everyone was stunned. No one thought that Ding Dao would actually kill someone if he wanted to kill someone, and it was the law enforcement elder of the Martial Arts Alliance who was killed. It was so sudden that Zhu Zishan didn't have time to take action. Even David was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that Ding Bu had such a hot temper. "Ding not big, you. Zhu Zishan's body was trembling all over, while the other members of the Martial Dao Alliance all had aura, and their eyes were full of killing intent. "Who dares to be disrespectful to Mr. Chen, see one kill another." Ding Dabu's face was full of murderous intent, and his voice was cold. Zhu Zishan frowned, wondering if Ding Bu had taken the wrong medicine. Why did he suddenly defend David like this? "Ding is not big, you can kill my alliance elders at will. You must give me an explanation for this matter." Although Zhu Zishan didn't want to follow the Valley of the Villains as an enemy, but now that things have reached this point, many people are watching, and just letting go of the four villains casually, how can he still have the prestige as an alliance leader? "Explain." Ding Dao's eyes narrowed. "I'll give you an explanation, it's a big deal and we'll die together. Second, send a message to Gu Nei and call everyone together. I want to see what the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance can do with us." "Big brother," Ding Bu shouted in embarrassment. "If you really want to fight with the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance, the scene will definitely be a lose-lose situation, and blood will flow into rivers by then." Ding Bu didn't understand why Ding Dao suddenly wanted to follow the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance. "I fucking ask you to send it, you send it." Ding didn't look angry. Ding Bu didn't dare to say anything, and hurriedly sent a message. Seeing this, Zhu Zishan's face became even uglier than eating sh. He could never have imagined that for David's sake, this boss Ding would die with his martial arts alliance. Zhu Zishan didn't want to really fight with the Valley of the Wicked, but this little Ding was just a hob meat, and it seemed that he didn't give himself any steps. Just when Zhu Zishan was frowning and devastated, how to deal with the matter, a person slowly came over. "Mr. Shi!" Someone shouted, and soon everyone separated a path. Seeing Mr. Shi coming, even the faces of the four villains became respectful. "Mr. Shi, this David blatantly violated Bai Lei's rules. He wanted to kill Long Xiao, and now he colluded with the people in the Valley of the Wicked to kill one of my elders. Now I'm about to arrest that David." Seeing that Mr. Shi actually came, Zhu Zishan hurriedly complained first. Chapter 1082. "Zhu Zishan, although I'm not here, don't take me as a blind man. I know exactly what happened here, as well as the activities of your martial arts alliance. Do you need me to tell you in depth?" Mr. Shi looked at the mountain of wishing lightly. When Zhu Zishan heard this, cold sweat instantly flowed down his forehead. After talking about Zhu Zishan, Mr. Shi looked at the four villains. "You also go back to the Valley of Villains. Some things are not controlled by the government, but too lazy to handle, Do you understand? Understand. Ding Dao nodded again and again, and then glanced at David. After David nodded, Ding Dao took a few people away. With Mr. Shi here, even if Zhu Zishan wanted to kill David, he didn't dare to do it at this time, so he could only go back with the people from the Martial Arts Alliance. This competition ended with Long Xiao's fiasco. At the same time, whether it was the Long family or the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance, they all lost face. David's reputation was short-lived, and many people began to look at David with admiration. You should pay attention to yourself in the future. The Watanabe family in the island country will not let you go easily, and in the martial arts world of Kyoto, the strength you showed today, I am afraid that many people will not be able to sleep. Your appearance, I am afraid that to break the pattern of the Kyoto martial arts world for so many years. Mr. Shi persuaded David. Thank you Mr. Shi for reminding. David quickly thanked him. Mr. Shi patted David on the shoulder and left without saying anything. Kyoto Budo Alliance. Zhu Zishan sat on the chair with a gloomy face. The anger on his body kept rising, and today's incident made Zhu Zishan almost die of anger. Just when Zhu Zishan was angry, a member of the alliance ran in, and then followed Zhu Zishan to report, Leader, Masao Nagamura, the ambassador from outside the island, asks to see you. Envoy from outside the island. Zhu Zishan froze for a moment, frowning slightly. What does the envoy from outside the island see me for? Zhu Zishan is very puzzled. Although he is the leader of the Martial Arts Alliance, the Martial Arts Alliance is a non-governmental organization after all, and he has no official position as the leader. What did the foreign envoy of this island country see him doing? Let him come in. Although Zhu Zishan was puzzled, he still let Nagamura Masao in. Soon, Masao Nagamura, dressed in a suit and with a mustache, walked in. I wish the alliance leader, I take the liberty to disturb. When Nagamura Masao saw Zhu Zishan, he immediately bowed politely. Masao Nagamura knows the etiquette of Daxia very well, after all, he has stayed here for many years. Ambassador Nagamura, I don't know what kind of wind brought you to me. I'm just the leader of the Martial Arts Alliance, and I don't seem to have much interaction with Ambassador Nagamura, right? Zhu Zishan asked with a slight smile. Leader Zhu, I heard that the competition held by your alliance today made the leader of the alliance very angry, so I specially sent a bead of dust to the leader of the alliance to reduce the anger of the leader of the alliance. Nagamura Masao said, took out a wooden box, and after opening it, a crystal clear bead was revealed. I saw that the beads were still blood red, and when the dust prevention beads were taken out, the whole hall felt a sense of coolness. Zhu Zishan's eyes lit up when he looked at the dust-preserving pearl, but he didn't pick it up immediately, but pretended to be deep. Ambassador Chang'an, we have an old saying in Daxia, which is called no merit, no reward, you suddenly send it away. Is there something wrong with such a precious gift of mine? I think it's better for you to talk about it first. Haha, the leader of the alliance is really cautious. I came to the leader of the alliance, and I do have something to ask for. I know that your martial arts alliance also hates that David and wants to kill him, but because of the pressure above, you always have no chance to start. You can leave the killing of David to our island country's killers, but what I wish the alliance to do is to find a way to allow our killers to enter the country smoothly. After killing David, I promise our people leave now. Nagamura Masao laughed and said. Chapter 1083. Zhu Zishan was stunned for a moment, pondered for a while, and said, it's not difficult to let your people enter, but if this matter spreads, I, the leader of the alliance, are afraid that it will not be guaranteed. I wish the leader of the alliance to rest assured that the news will never be leaked. You let our people enter, and our people help you kill David, remove a hidden danger, and mutually benefit each other, why not do it? Nagamura Masao persuaded Zhu Zishan. Zhu Zishan looked at the beacon pearl in Nagamura Masao's hand, and finally gritted his teeth, okay, I promise you, but after your people kill David, they will leave soon. No problem. Masao Nagamura put the dust beads on the table, and then got up and said goodbye. After Masao Nagamura walked back, Zhu Zishan put away the dust beads and shouted to the door, "Someone, go and invite Director Guo." Soon, Guo Wei was invited, but Guo Wei's face was ugly. Today, he is a shame, being watched by so many people, and being forced to burn blood by David. Now His Majesty in the Martial Arts Alliance is likely to decline a lot. If he can't kill David, then he will not be able to hold the position of director for a long time. Guo Wei, do you think you are David's opponent? Zhu Zishan looked at Guo Wei and asked directly. Guo Wei clenched his fists tightly and said with cold eyes, "Alliance leader, David is powerful, but it is not difficult for me to kill him. Give me 5 days, and I will bring David's head. It's easy to kill David, but I hope this is done neatly. Don't let people find out about the head of my martial arts alliance. Didn't you see that Mr. Shi has been protecting him? There are a lot of people who want to kill David, why do we need to do it ourselves? You go there yourself and use your relationship to bring the killers of the Watanabe family into the country. When the time comes, the people of the Watanabe family will kill David and join us in the martial arts alliance. It doesn't matter at all." Zhu Zishan squinted his eyes slightly, and his eyes were full of cold light. Guo Wei was stunned for a moment, then cautiously said, "Alliance leader, this. If Mr. Shi finds out about this, I'm afraid there will be a big problem. Privately putting foreign killers in, is this tantamount to treason? In a country that is sentenced to SHT, those people are just entering to kill David. When David is killed, they will naturally leave." Zhu Zishan gave Guo Wei a vicious look and said. Seeing this, Guo Wei could only nod his head, "Okay, I'll take a trip." On the other hand, after David defeated that Long Xiao, he didn't stay too long, but followed Yu Dong directly back to Yaishan Valley. David is still worried about Gulinger's safety. He is going to see if Su Chongsheng and the others have found a drug to detoxify Gulinger's body. When David rushed back to Yaishan Valley, Gulinger was still in a coma. Su Chongsheng and the other elders were helpless. David looked at Gulinger who was in a coma and knew that he had to take Gulinger to the northwest in person. Only by finding the northwest King Valley Kaiwan, can the poison on Gulinger be solved. "David, how was the battle with Long Xiao? Did the 4 villains show up?" Long Wu asked David. "Long Xiao is defeated. If it wasn't for the 4 villains to come forward, then the martial arts alliance would not have let me go," David said with some lingering fears. At that time, David was indeed insane, and he didn't think about the consequences at all. If the 4 villains hadn't appeared, David would have been a corpse by now. "I guessed that the martial arts alliance won't let you win easily, so I passed on the book to the villain Gu Feiche, and asked the 4 villains to come out. The martial arts alliance is all sanctimonious guys, and no one is trustworthy." Speaking of the martial arts alliance, Long Wu's face was full of anger. "By the way, Uncle Long, how did you get to know the 4 villains in the Valley of the Villains? Can you still invite them to come forward?" David was very curious, what kind of friendship did Long Wu have with these 4 villains? Chapter 1084. Hearing David's question, Long Wu smiled helplessly, and then said, "Speaking of which, let's start from more than 20 years ago, when there were not only the 4 great evils, but the 5 great evils. I'm the 5th. But when I was hunted down by the enemy family, it was your mother who rescued me. Since then, I have left the Valley of the Wicked, and by your mother's side, I have become her personal bodyguard, and I have become a member of the Long family. I have since changed my name to Long Wu. Already. In a flash, more than 20 years have passed, and the strength of the Valley of the Villains has long since changed. However, the 4 villains still give me face. If there is anything, as long as I speak, they will help." Hearing what Long Wu said, David realized that Long Wu was also a member of the Valley of the Wicked before. David did not follow Long Wu to talk about the Dragon Sect, because Dragon Sect was David's last trump card, and the fewer people who knew it, the better. After saying goodbye to Longwu, David rushed to the airport with Gu Linger. There is still a long way to the northwest from Kyoto. It is at the most border of the entire Daxia, and it is the most barren place in Daxia. However, because there are more virgin forests here and the environment is good, many warriors like to practice here. David took Gu Linger and flew for more than 5 hours by plane before landing in Sichuan City, the northwestern province. After getting off the plane, David realized what is real barrenness. A provincial capital, looking at the prosperous level, can't even compare to the small city of Horindal. Dude, do you want to take the car? As soon as David got off the plane, a taxi driver stepped forward and asked. David nodded and took Gu Linger into the taxi. Dude, where are you going? After getting in the car, the taxi driver asked. Let's find a bigger hotel for a rest first. David asked the taxi driver to find a hotel to rest first. Now David doesn't know where the Northwest King Gu Kaiwan lives, so he has to beat him to Gu Kaiwan's residence first. Dude, your accent is from a foreign country, right? Why did you come to us? Young people from our side have all gone to work in other provinces, and no one wants to stay in a place where birds don't sh. The taxi driver likes to chat very much, chatting with David. Find a friend. David closed his eyes slightly and replied casually. Seeing that you are very rich, I will take you to the only 5-star hotel here. Our entire provincial capital is also this 5-star hotel. I heard that it is very luxurious. I will never have the opportunity to live in it in my life. I heard that building this hotel cost more than 1 billion yuan, which is very expensive. The taxi driver was chattering. Whatever. David replied casually. David doesn't have any special needs in what hotel to stay in. It makes no difference to David where he lives. In the entire Northwest, only the Wang Gu family in the Northwest has built a 5-star hotel, but I heard that the Gu family has been walking around with the giants in Kyoto recently, and I heard that they want to move their family to Kyoto. If that happens, our Sichuan city will be even more desolate. The taxi driver sighed. But at this time, David suddenly opened his eyes, and asked with a bit of excitement on his face, Master, do you still know about the Northwest Wanggu Kaiwan? The driver was stunned for a moment, and immediately said, How can you not know? In the entire Northwest, the Gu family is the second child. Who dares to say that he is the boss? Then the Northwest King Gu Kaiwan, I heard that in the entire Northwest, there is no rival, the whole Northwest people I'm afraid of him. No one in the entire Northwest can beat him. The corner of David's mouth was slightly raised, obviously he didn't believe it. Gu Kaiwan's strength was at most 8th rank martial sect. How could it be that no one in the whole Northwest had beaten him? Chapter 1085. It's just that many powerful warriors don't care about this kind of competition for fame and fortune, and they only focus on cultivation. Otherwise, if Gu Kaiwan can secure the number 1 position in the Northwest, the martial arts world in the entire Northwest will be too weak. Don't believe me, I heard that the Northwest King's supernatural powers flew into the sky, like a god. Anyway, I have never seen it. The driver said mysteriously. David just smiled. For ordinary people, Wu Zong with 8th rank strength can indeed be called an immortal. Master, do you know where Gu Kaiwan lives? David asked. In the west of the city, there is a manor of more than 1,000 acres, which is where his family lives, but if you don't have an invitation, don't go there in the end. If you can't get in, you might be beaten up and want to see the king of the Northwest. All have to be booked in advance. The driver's master reminded David. Master, thank you, I just asked casually, I don't know him, what to do there? David smiled slightly. Just as the driver was rushing towards the hotel with David and the others, on a relatively remote road, a black car suddenly came out from behind. It smashed directly with the taxi, which shocked the taxi driver, and hurriedly got out of the car to check. When he saw that the other party was driving a BMW, the driver's face changed color. "Are you fucking blind? How did you drive?" Two people got off the black BMW, and they scolded the taxi driver. "You two, I'm sorry, you guys rushed out suddenly, I didn't have time to brake." The driver quickly apologized to both of them. It's just that one of them pushes the taxi driver reluctantly, while the two of them silently look at David in the taxi. Although David was sitting in the car, he had already discovered the guy who was secretly looking at him, and the two of them had a faint smell of martial artists. These two people have been deliberately hiding their breath, but David can still detect it. "You two, I'm in a hurry now, didn't I just rub the car? How much money I need, I'll pay you all." David opened the car door and walked out. One of them looked at David up and down, and David deliberately showed his breath a little bit. Obviously, the expressions of the two people changed slightly, but they recovered quickly. "I'll repair this car, at least 3,000. One of them said. David didn't say anything, just took out 3,000 from his pocket and handed it over. "Master driver, let's go, I'm in a hurry to rest," David said to the taxi driver. The taxi driver didn't dare to move until the other party waved his hand impatiently. Let's go, let's go." If the taxi driver was granted amnesty, he hurried into the car and drove away. "Dude, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I would be out of luck." "You don't know that these two guys are from the Gu family," said the taxi driver. "People from the Gu family? How did you know?" David was stunned for a moment, wondering how the taxi driver knew. After all, the taxi driver is an ordinary person, and it is impossible to feel the martial artist breath on the two. "I saw it at a glance. Although they deliberately covered up the tattoos on their arms, I saw it as soon as I got out of the car. The Gu family can't afford to offend." The taxi driver was frightened for a while. David didn't say anything, but he was a little puzzled. What did the two people from the Gu family follow him? Obviously, the other party deliberately rubbed the car up, and then observed the situation inside the car. Could it be that Gu Kaiwan knew that he was here? But whether Gu Kaiwan knew it or not, David was not afraid. What he was afraid of was that Gu Kaiwan knew that he was here and was running away secretly. Chapter 1086. After arriving at the hotel, the driver did not ask for David's money, he thanked David and left. However, David discovered that even a person driving a black BMW had followed him, so he parked the car not far away. David didn't make a statement, but entered the hotel, settled Gu Linger well, and walked out of the hotel directly. The two were still watching not far from the door of the hotel, and when they saw David coming out, they all turned around pretending to be. David pretended not to see the two of them, but walked to the side street at will. Seeing David leave, the two immediately followed. But after following a distance, the two suddenly found that David had disappeared. "It's broken, people are gone. What should I do? Why don't we go back and report to the patriarch first?" The two discussed quietly. "Why are you two following me?" At this moment, David came out from behind the two. The two of them were startled and hurriedly turned back to see David looking at them with a playful expression. "You, what did you say?" "We just wandered around, who followed you?" After one of them finished speaking, he wanted to tell the other to leave. But David dodged and stood in front of the two. "Don't pretend, you have followed me all the way. Did Gu Kaiwan send you here?" David asked sharply. "What are you talking about? We don't understand at all, you'd better get out of the way, don't mess with us." One of them threatened David. "It seems that you won't say anything if you don't suffer a little." David raised the corner of his mouth, and then slapped him. The two clearly saw David slap him, but found that they couldn't dodge at all. The guy who threatened David just now was directly slapped. The two of them were instantly shocked. They were both great masters. When the others slapped them, they couldn't escape. Boy, are you courting death? The moment he was beaten, he was angry, and then the breath on his body was fully released, and the terrifying coercion came towards David. The other person no longer pretended to be, and directly dissipated the breath from his body. Humph, even a mere Grand Master dares to be arrogant, really over his own abilities. David snorted coldly, followed by a flash of coldness in his eyes. David didn't move at all, and a majestic aura on his body directly pushed the two people to the ground. This time, the two of them showed panic in their eyes, and they were completely scared. In front of David, they found that they had no power to fight back at all. The hero spares his life, the hero spares his life, we are also instructed by others. The two desperately followed David to beg for mercy. Say, did Gu Kaiwan let you follow me? You know my identity? David asked coldly. One of them shook his head again and again, no. I don't know, the owner told us to yell at the airport and keep staring at the plane coming from Kyoto. As long as there are warriors above the Grand Master on the plane, let us determine the other party's foothold. Report to him. Then you also reported my destination. David frowned. If Gu Kaiwan knew this, it would be troublesome if he was sneaking away. The world is big, where would he go to find this guy? No, we haven't had time to report yet, because the two of us are always uncertain about your strength. The other party shook his head and said. Only then did David understand that these two people had been following him and bumped cars on purpose. They wanted to inquire about their own strength. David hid part of his breath, so these two people were not sure about David's exact strength and dared not report it easily. Okay, you two get out of here. After David finished speaking, the breath on his body was instantly withdrawn, and then he walked to the side. Chapter 1087. After David left, the two dared to stand up. Seeing that David had long since disappeared, they took out their mobile phones and wanted to report. But before the call was made, the two suddenly froze, and then Kikiao began to bleed, and finally they all fell to the ground. David's breath just now has damaged the internal organs of the two people, and David will not let the two of them spread the news back. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, David decided to go directly to Gu Kaiwan, so as not to have too many dreams at night. When he arrived at the place, David was stunned by the sight in front of him. Although Zishuan City is barren, the manor in front of you is a bit too luxurious. The manor covers an area of hundreds of acres, and there are many villas. And at the door, there is a stone lion that is as tall as one person, and there is a team of people patrolling back and forth, and the defense is very tight. At this moment, in the Gu family manor, an extremely luxurious villa hall, Gu Kaiwan's face is ugly, he is walking back and forth, restless. I don't know why, after returning from Suolong Island, Gu Kaiwan has been frightened, afraid that David will find trouble for himself. These 2 days, my eyelids are jumping, and I can't sleep well. Patriarch, you better rest early. We have sent people to the airport, train station, and every intersection. If David comes, we will know for sure. There are not many people in Zishuan, and strangers can easily be found when they come. Especially that David is still a martial sect, and the breath on his body is easy to detect. The old housekeeper of the Gu family persuaded Gu Kaiwan. But Gu Kaiwan frowned, and did not go to rest, but said with a heavy face, Uncle Zhong, I am still not at ease, have the guards outside been arranged? Patriarch, don't worry, everything has been arranged. All the patrolling people are the strength of Wuzong. Even if David comes, we don't need to be afraid of him. After all, this is the home of Patriarch. Uncle Zhong comforted Gu Kaiwan. After Gu Kaiwan heard this, he relaxed a little and yawned, Uncle Zhong, then I'll go to rest, call me immediately if something happens. Uncle Zhong nodded. Gu Kaiwan went back to his room to sleep, but at the door of Gu's manor, David walked towards the door calmly. Who? When the two bodyguards at the door saw this, they immediately became alert. In the middle of the night, someone suddenly walked towards the door, and the two bodyguards were immediately ready to fight. Looking at the two bodyguards at the door, David said lightly, "I'm here to find Gu Kaiwan." The two bodyguards glanced at each other, and one of them asked, "What are you doing to our master at night? Our master is not seeing guests now, so you should go." "Of course it will be night to kill, I'm here to kill him." The corner of David's mouth slightly raised. The expressions of the two bodyguards suddenly changed, and they pulled out their weapons. Looking at the knives in the hands of the two bodyguards, David sneered and then walked directly towards the manor, completely ignoring the two bodyguards at the door. When the two bodyguards saw this, they were furious and slashed at David with knives. Clang clang! With two crisp sounds, David's body was unscathed, but the knives in the hands of the two bodyguards were all broken in two at this moment. Seeing this situation, the two bodyguards were immediately dumbfounded. "I killed Gu Kaiwan, you don't want to die, just get out of here." David still thought about walking inside the manor. Seeing this, the two bodyguards threw away the knives in their hands, and then disappeared into the vast darkness. They also came to the Gu family as bodyguards for the sake of money. Now that David is so powerful, how dare they stay and seek death? David swaggered into the manor. The bodyguards who were patrolling the manor at the moment rushed over and surrounded David. Chapter 1088. With such a big movement, the housekeeper Zongbo also came out of the room. More than a dozen people surrounded David, and everyone was Wuzong, with a tyrannical aura. Uncle Zhong glanced at David, frowned slightly and said, "Who are you? Why did you break into my manor in the middle of the night? Damn, why are they all the same?" David scolded angrily, "Let Gu Kaiwan get out and say that I, David, came to him to settle accounts." As soon as he heard the words of David, Uncle Zhong's expression suddenly changed. He didn't expect that David, who Gu Kaiwan had been terrified of, had already arrived. "Our master is not in the manor, you are not here at the right time," Uncle Zhong said to David. "It's not up to you to decide whether you are there or not. I have to look for it myself." After David finished speaking, he was about to enter the villa to find it. "Stop him," Uncle Zhong frowned. A dozen bodyguards surrounded David, and they shot out in an instant. These are all Wuzong invited at a high price, a dozen people. Even if David is powerful, a dozen people can always deal with him, right? But soon, Uncle Zhong was dumbfounded. Because he saw that more than a dozen Wuzong masters who paid a high price to invite, in front of David, are not even as good as ants. As soon as David waved his hands, several people fell to the ground instantly. More than a dozen martial arts masters failed to make 3 moves in David's hands, and they all fell to the ground and couldn't get up. Uncle Zhong turned around and wanted to run, but was picked up by David. "Where's Gu Kaiwan?" David asked the housekeeper Zongbo. Patriarch, he's in there." The housekeeper Zongbo pointed to the villa in front of him and said. David glanced at the villa, and threw the housekeeper Zongbo aside, and then a divine dragon power surrounded the palm of his right hand, and David's palm began to flash with golden light. "Get out!" Taking a deep breath, David roared angrily, and then waved his palm towards the villa. Rumbling! This palm instantly erupted with a tornado-like force, knocking down half of the villa in front of him. Gu Kaiwan, who was sleeping in the room originally, woke up with the rumbling sound of collapse. As the strength of the 8th-rank martial sect, Gu Kaiwan certainly couldn't be easily smashed to death, but when he came out of the room, he was also very embarrassed. "Are you finally willing to come out?" David looked at Gu Kaiwan, who was full of embarrassment, and said coldly. Gu Kaiwan glanced at the bodyguards lying on the ground, and couldn't help swallowing. It turned out to be Mr. Chen. "Don't tell me when you come to Zishuan, I can help Mr. Chen." "Gu Kaiwan, you don't need to give me a close-up, you know what I'm here for." David didn't expect Gu Kaiwan to be so thick-skinned that he even followed himself. Mr. Chen, I really don't know. You hurt my people and demolished my house, so I don't understand now. Gu Kaiwan pretended to be aggrieved and said. Fgook, are you pretending to be with me? David was furious, and he stepped forward and punched Gu Kaiwan. This punch hit Gu Kaiwan directly, and Gu Kaiwan stepped back several steps. If it wasn't for Gu Kaiwan to detoxify Gu Linger, David would have killed Gu Kaiwan long ago. Mr. Chen, I really didn't pretend. I know that when I was in Suolong Island, it was a misunderstanding, and Ning Ji asked me to do it. I have no grievances with Mr. Chen, right? Although Gu Kaiwan was punched, he still held back laughter. David looked at Gu Kaiwan like this, but he admired this guy a little. As the king of the Northwest, he could swallow his anger. No injustice and no enmity? My girlfriend is still in a coma. When you poisoned us, why didn't you say there was no injustice and no enmity? David looked at Gu Kaiwan coldly and asked. Chapter 1089. Mr. Chen misunderstood. In fact, I didn't poison you. The reason why your girlfriend is in a coma is just because of the spell. As long as I unlock the spell, Mr. Chen's girlfriend will wake up naturally. Gu Kaiwan quickly explained. After David heard it, he finally understood why he couldn't find any poison in Gu Linger, and even Su Chongsheng and the others were helpless. It turned out that it was not poisoned at all, but was in a coma after being hit by a spell. Then hurry up and break the spell now. David urged. Mr. Chen, where is your girlfriend? I need to see your girlfriend before I can break the spell. Gu Kaiwan asked. It's in the 5-star hotel of your Gu family. You can go with me. If you unlock the spell and Linger still doesn't wake up, I will make your Gu family disappear in the entire Northwest. David looked at Gu Kaiwan coldly and said. Don't worry, Mr. Chen, I'll go and make sure your girlfriend wakes up. Gu Kaiwan quickly assured. Gu Kaiwan followed David towards the hotel, and before leaving, Gu Kaiwan gave the housekeeper Zongbo a wink. When David brought Gu Kaiwan to the hotel, Gu Kaiwan did not follow David to help Gu Linger unravel the spell, but sat in the hotel lobby and sipped tea, the humble expression on Gu Kaiwan's face. Bao disappeared, replaced by a bit of pride. David frowned slightly. Gu Kaiwan, what do you mean? Gu Kaiwan said with pride on his face, it's not interesting, I want to help your girlfriend unravel the spell, you can hand over that little treasure in you, as well as the dragon crystal in your body, give it to me, I'm thinking about it. Can't help you. David was stunned for a moment, then his eyes narrowed, and murderous aura rose up from his body. Gu Kaiwan, you are courting death. David said, and strode towards Gu Kaiwan. Am I courting death? Let's watch a video first. After Gu Kaiwan finished speaking, he picked up a remote control and turned on the screen in the lobby. Gu Linger's figure instantly appeared on the screen. Gu Linger was controlled by 2 people, but at this moment Gu Linger was already awake and not in a coma. Gu Linger's eyes were filled with a bit of horror, and she kept asking who the 2 people were controlling her. David looked at the scene on the screen, the killing intent on his body instantly rose to the apex, and his eyes were red as he looked at Gu Kaiwan. You don't have to look at me like this. If you don't want your girlfriend to die, then just go and capture it. Gu Kaiwan didn't care about David's anger. The anger on David gradually disappeared, and finally calmed down. I can give you anything you want, but I can't give you anything until I see my girlfriend. David said lightly. No problem, come with me. Gu Kaiwan turned off the video and returned to the manor with David. After entering the manor, he kept taking David to the back of the manor. There were thousands of acres of manor, and there was no end in sight. The 2 walked all the way to a very old villa, and then stopped. This villa is 10 stories high, and looking at the shape and walls, it is probably decades old. David didn't understand why Gu Kaiwan left such an old building in his manor. Gu Kaiwan stood at the door, chanting words in his mouth, and the heavy iron door at the door suddenly opened slowly. When David followed Gu Kaiwan in, he discovered that there was something special in this old villa. I saw gold-plated ornaments everywhere, and many gilt Buddha statues. At first glance, it is extremely luxurious. After the two walked in, the heavy iron gate behind closed, a mysterious and quaint aura directly penetrated David's body and sealed the Danshan in David's body. Chapter 1090. David frowned, and hurriedly mobilized his spiritual power, but found that his Danshan was motionless, and he couldn't mobilize a little spiritual power. This time, David was a little panicked. If he can't mobilize his spiritual power, it means that David will undoubtedly follow ordinary people. Ha ha ha, don't bother, this is the suppression tower of my Gu family. Everyone who enters here will be suppressed by their strength, except our Gu family of course. Gu Kaiwan looked at David's panicked look and laughed. Where is my girlfriend? David looked at Gu Kaiwan coldly. Don't worry, just let me go. Gu Kaiwan led the way in front, and the two stepped on the gilded stairs and walked up step by step. Along the way, David desperately launched the concentration technique, trying to break the shackles of the spiritual power in his Danshan, but it was useless. Just when David was about to give up, the dragon crystal in his Danshan suddenly flickered, and then the power of the dragon in David's body broke through the shackles. After the bondage was broken, the spiritual power in David's Danshan began to tumble frantically, and David's strength recovered at once, but Gu Kaiwan, who was excited at this time, didn't know it yet. It was until the third floor that David saw Gu Linger being brought in an empty hall. Seeing David coming, Gu Linger looked a little excited. David, where is this? Where are we? Gu Linger's thinking was still on Suolong Island, where she was in a coma. David brought Gu Linger to the northwest, but Gu Linger didn't know it at all. Linger, we are in the northwest now, don't be afraid, it's fine. David hurriedly wanted to appease Gu Linger, but was stopped by Gu Kaiwan. What? My skills are limited now, and I'm just an ordinary person. Are you still afraid of me when I become an ordinary person? David saw Gu Kaiwan blocking him, so he said indifferently. Art, who the H3LL is afraid of you, in this town magic tower, you David can never be my opponent. Gu Kaiwan let go of David, let David run over, and hug Linger tightly. David, what the H3LL is going on? How did we come here? I can't feel any spiritual energy in me. Holding David, Gu Linger asked in panic. Linger, I'll explain to you when I have time, I'll kill these guys in front of me first. David comforted Gu Linger. David, now that you have seen your girlfriend, and she has woken up, it's time to give me the things. Gu Kaiwan said proudly. Leave it to you. David sneered, you are also worthy. Since my girlfriend is awake, it is useless to keep you, you should be damned. Seeing David talking to himself like this, Gu Kaiwan was stunned for a moment, and then he said angrily, good boy, since you are looking for death yourself, then I will kill you and take the dragon crystal directly from your body. You too, kill him. Gu Kaiwan ordered to the two men. David is now an ordinary person, so there is no need for Gu Kaiwan to deal with him. Yes. After the two of them finished speaking, they quickly rushed towards David. Linger, dodge. David told Gu Linger to dodge, then looked at the two people who were rushing over, and said with a corner of his mouth, just take you two to open the meet. These two people are all 5-rank martial arts, and they are considered masters in the martial arts world. But the two of them just rushed in front of David, when they saw a sudden burst of awe-inspiring aura from David, and they stunned them all at once. Both of them were stunned. They also thought that David's strength had long been suppressed and he became an ordinary person, but now they feel this momentum, which is obviously higher than them.